Hey everyone, it's the Dark Knight Admin, and today we're going to talk about custom objects. More along the lines of, do I need a custom object? So, you've come to the conclusion that you think you may need a custom object. Very interesting. But before we talk about creating a custom object, let's talk about what an object is in general. It's a collection of records. I like to classify as a data table. If you're familiar with databases, it's just a table. If you're not familiar with databases, if you're familiar with Excel, think of it as an Excel sheet and all the different rows and records that you have on the Excel sheet. That's what I like to kind of translate as an object. So that's what an object is. What you see in the bottom here, this is a collection of addresses. It's a custom object I've created. It's got a bunch of different fields on there, and it's just used to track different addresses at a particular location or an account. So some common use cases for custom objects, they're there to support processes, gather information. It's good for linking objects for those many relationships, also known as a junction object. So if you need to have those connections, this is a great tool to use for that. Custom objects are probably what you want to have. But before we create the custom object, I like to ask myself a few questions. First of all, do the fields that I'm putting on this belong in another object? What I'm saying is, if I'm going to be creating this custom object, the fields I'm going to put in this custom object, do they exist somewhere else? Do they make sense on a different object? Because if they make sense on a different object, we probably want to put them there. Occasionally, there's scenarios where there's going to be overlap, or in the scenario of the address, yes, on the account and a bunch of the other objects, standard objects, there are fields there that have addresses on them, but occasionally they only allow you to have one or two addresses. What if my account needs to have 5 addresses or 6 or 10? I'm not going to create a bunch of custom fields for all those things. I'm going to create a custom object to support those processes. The next question I like to ask myself is, does this object look, act like another object I already have? So if the custom object I'm creating acts like an opportunity, maybe I should just go to my opportunity. Maybe I need to create a new record type for that particular object, but not necessarily create a new custom object because it already exists. So if I already have what I need on another object, don't recreate another object for the same purpose. This is only going to cause confusion down the line. One of the other questions I like to ask myself is, does the creation of this object bring value to the org? So if I create this custom object, is it going to be around in a year, 2 years, 3, 5, to the end of the org's life? Who really knows? But if it's only being utilized once or twice, it's probably not worth the effort of creating that custom object in your org because it's not going to be value added. Here are a couple of examples of custom objects that I've created. I've created tons of custom objects. These are just some ones that I like to point out. I've created a certification object, which I use to track certifications. That way I can know who has what certifications, not just using the Salesforce ecosystem, but in any industry where there may be certifications, you may want to track who has what types of certifications, be it medical, insurance, financial. All those are great areas where you may have to track certifications. So certification object typically makes sense for those types of things. You can use it to track projects, so the different types of projects you may want to create. We've talked about the address as well. Basically, anytime you need to have some type of dynamic information, you may also want to think about a custom object. So if there's some fields that I always need to fill out for my opportunity process, but I may need to fill it out multiple times during that sales process, I may need to create a custom object to track the information because maybe I need to keep those updates to the different values. I could use field history tracking for some of those things, but maybe it's a lot of fields that I need to keep track of, and I don't want to waste all my field history tracking on that, so I'm going to create a custom object to track that information for me. The other thing that you need to ask yourself, are you able to make a custom object? Just because you've identified that you may need one doesn't necessarily mean your org is going to allow you to do that. Depending on the addition of your org, you may have limitations on the number of custom objects you can create. Most people use the professional, enterprise, or unlimited performance, so you typically have a little wiggle room to build a custom object or two. If you're using the developer, you get those 400 custom objects that you can create. Typically, that's enough to get you what you need, but occasionally you may need more. You also want to create a custom object just because you can, because later on you may have to go delete that custom object so you can create one that actually is value added. So before you build, Think about what you need to build, justify it by saying, yep, this is truly a new need, build your plan around it, and then execute the plan. Those are the 4 steps that you need to do to kind of be prepared to make your custom object. If you have any questions, comments, put them in the comments below. I'm also curious on what custom objects you've created, so put those in the comments down below. Thanks for having me. See you next time.